It's Tuesday, May 14th. I'm Josie Duffy Rice.
And I'm Tre'vell Anderson, and this is What a Day, where we're putting a hex on the New York Times for trying to convince us that cicadas are an edible delicacy.
Yeah, they are calling cicadas the noisy lobsters of the trees, and that is a quote, I am calling the FDA. No, I don't accept.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. I'm opting out.
On today's show, Louisiana lawmakers could classify abortion pills as dangerous, addictive drugs. Plus, Donald Trump's former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, takes the stand in the Trump hush money trial.
But first, in startling news, Donald Trump leads President Biden in 5 of the 6 battleground states, according to 2 new polls released Monday by the New York Times. Biden leads by 2 points in Wisconsin, while Trump is up in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada. And while 3 of those states remain within the margin of error, in Georgia and Nevada, Trump has a very, very commanding lead.
I don't like the sound of this, Josie. Now, do we know why Biden is losing so significantly?
Yeah, well, Biden has struggled with young voters, as we've talked about on the show, in particular in recent months, in part due to his administration's support for Israel in the war in Gaza. But it's actually not just Gaza. The current economy is also a point of contention for voters and is likely driving at least some of the diluted enthusiasm around his campaign.
That makes plenty of sense to me, but obviously for Democrats, this is not the hopeful picture for the fall election I'm sure they were wishing for.
It is definitely concerning, but while polls are an important snapshot of the country, they're also kind of a narrow snapshot of the country, right? And so to understand what these numbers mean, I called up Dan Pfeiffer. He's a co-host of Pod Save America and the host of Pollercoaster, our exclusive podcast all about polls for our Friends of the Pod subscribers. And I started by asking him if Democrats should be in panic mode after seeing these polls.
You should never panic. Panic is a very counterproductive response to anything, right? So it's like, no, you should not run around like a chicken with your head cut off. But I just want to remind everyone that polls are not predictive. This poll does not tell us really anything about what is going to happen in November. It tells us what's happening right now here in early May. And the picture is not super pretty, but take them seriously, but not literally, right? Try to look at what the broad trends say, how do voters feel, and worry a little bit less about whether Biden's up by 2 or down by 2 or whether Trump's lead went from 6 to 8. It just focus more on what it says about where voters' heads are right now. Because from the perspective of people trying to win the election, that's how you devise your plan to win, right? As you read these polls, you understand what people are thinking about, then you go persuade them to feel better about your candidate and worse about your opponent.
I do want to ask, is what we're seeing a real question about whether voters are going to vote for Biden versus Trump, or whether Biden leading voters are going to turn out, or Trump leading voters are going to turn out?
It's both, really. This poll looked at both registered voters, so anyone who is registered to vote, whether they state how certain they are to vote in 2024, and likely voters, people who have expressed a intention to vote in 2024. And Biden does better with likely voters. And Biden always does better with more politically engaged voters. Biden does better with midterm voters. He does even better with special election voters. So the more politically engaged you are, the more you are for Biden. What that says is that Trump depends on voters without a great history of voting. That's sort of the opposite of how politics used to be. It used to be Democrats who really needed high turnout to win. But particularly since the Trump era, we've become a party where our base votes all the time. And so when it's our base versus their base, we win. When Trump is able to expand into these people who are less certain voters, then he wins. So this poll looks at it both ways. Now, to be, sort of brutally honest about it, Trump is winning under both scenarios, right? He certainly gets the 270 electoral votes under both scenarios, but the more certain voters are more pro-Biden than the electorate at large.
Can you remind our listeners which battleground states Biden won 4 years ago and how crucial these 6 states are for him to be reelected?
Biden won all of these states in 2020. Most of them by very, very narrow margins, often less than a point, but he won all 6 of them. Now, to get to 270 electoral votes, he doesn't need to win all 6. He can get there simply by winning Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. And what this poll shows is those states are essentially tied.
So the president's campaign for reelection is trying to kind of redirect distract attention from this poll.
Right.
They're trying to direct attention more to this Democratic pollster, Simon Rosenberg. And Rosenberg is saying that it's too early to tell, that the results are, quote, inconsistent. And he also said, quote, the reality is that many voters are not paying close attention to the election and have not started making up their minds. These voters will decide this election, and only the Biden campaign is doing the work to win them over. Is this correct? Talk to us about Simon Rosenberg. Like, is it actually too early? How should we interpret that statement?
Yeah, I mean, Simon is a very, very smart guy who's worked in Democratic politics for a long time. And in this election, he is someone who has repeatedly pointed out that Biden is on the path to win, regardless of what the polls say. Where Simon, I think, is correct here is really essentially a 1-point lead in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan is essentially a tie. That is a tied race. The Biden campaign has built a massive organization that is much larger and drastically outpaces what Trump is building, which gives him an advantage in a close race. It is certainly too early. Simon is correct that voters haven't tuned in yet. There's a large persuadable universe here. It's also clear that Biden has real work to do. He is underperforming specifically with voters under 30, Hispanic voters, and black voters. He has largely maintained his 2020 margins with white voters and older voters. And it's these three groups who have sort of frayed from the anti-MAGA or the Biden coalition, and he's got to get them back. Now, there's some good news there, which is that these voters in general, even though they're unhappy with Joe Biden right now, have voted for him in the past, disagree with Donald Trump on a lot of issues, including abortion, and have a history of voting for Democrats. And so they are voters who are very persuadable, but there is work to do. And 6 months is a long time, but time is moving fast here.
So we know that in some of these swing states, Democrats are leading in key Senate races. So Bob Casey is polling 5 points ahead of his Republican opponent in Pennsylvania. Ruben Gallego is a Phoenix Democrat, 4 points ahead of Trump ally sycophant Carrie Lake in Arizona. And yet Biden is struggling. So what do we attribute that to? What issues are at play here when it comes to this lower approval rating?
What's really interesting about this is that the Senate Democratic candidates are winning because they are getting typical Democratic levels of support from Democratic base voters like voters under 30, black voters, and Hispanic voters. So there are sort of three theories as to why that is the case. All of them could be somewhat correct. One is that Biden has a particular weakness among these three groups for whatever reasons. The other could be that Donald Trump has a strength among these groups that other Republicans do not have. And the third reason is the economy, right? In this poll, 3/4 of voters say the economy is fair or poor. Young voters, Hispanic voters, and black voters think it's even worse than that. Typically, voters do not hold senators accountable for the economy. They want the senators to vote for the right things. They care about who's in control of the Senate. But in general, they associate the president with the price of eggs and gas and rent and the unemployment rate in a way they do not hold senators accountable. So you can see a world in which voters who generally align with Democrats on other issues, but are very upset about the economy, very frustrated with the economy, will hold Joe Biden accountable for that, but not Ruben Gallego, Bob Casey, Tammy Baldwin, or some of these other candidates.
Another thing we've talked about a lot about on the show is just like the disarray of the Republican Party, like in terms of leadership, obviously. There's the mess in the House of Representatives right now. Their party's frontrunner is stuck in court facing criminal charges. At last count, they've had 19 speakers of the House. That's my own count. In just the past few months, it feels like. So these sound like things that should work in Biden's favor here. And it almost seems like they're not. What do you make of that? They
still could work in his favor. Like, one of my takeaways from this poll is the more voters know about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, the better Joe Biden does. To the point you asked about Simon Rosenberg earlier is voters have not fully tuned into this race. Many of them have tuned out of politics. There have been fundamental changes in the media ecosystem that make it harder for casual news consumers to follow politics. It doesn't show up in your Facebook feed anymore. Fewer people are watching local news and broadcast news and cable news. And so people are not tuned in yet. And when people tune in, that's our opportunity to educate them about what Biden's done, what Biden will do, and as importantly, what Donald Trump will do. The fact that he wants to cut Social Security and Medicare, the fact that he is okay with even the most extreme total abortion bans at the state level, that he would probably, despite what he has said, sign a federal abortion ban, that he wants to essentially use the White House to give himself legal immunity, reward his friends, and go on a retribution tour against his enemies. Voters don't know that yet. That's information we can give them. And so just because something hasn't hurt Trump yet doesn't mean it's not going to hurt him over the next few months.
Do you get the sense that people have forgotten what the Trump years were like? There does seem to be some sort of short-term memory on the chaos of the Trump administration.
There is a real Trump amnesia effect. The Trump presidency for a lot of these voters is like frozen in amber from February of 2020. And the focus is on the price of eggs, gas, groceries, whatever else. But it's also that huge swaths of this country tuned out of politics the day we were allowed to leave our houses in 2021. Donald Trump was gone. People started to live their lives again. They checked out the news. And most people did not think about Trump for like 4 straight years. They haven't seen him. We see all these clips of him acting like a lunatic at a rally in Wildwood, New Jersey, or at the courthouse. Most people don't see that. They're totally unaware of it. Absence has made the heart grow a little fonder, and it's going to be incumbent upon the Biden campaign and us to remind people what it was like, right? And what the consequences of having him come back to office are. He's become a slightly generic alternative to Biden, and we need to fill in the blanks there.
That is the latest for now. We will get to some headlines in a moment, but if you like our show, make sure to subscribe and share it with your friends and your family and your frenemies and your coworkers and the person on the bus. Just tell everybody.
Everybody and their mama.
Everybody and their mama. And if you want more of Dan, tune into Pollercoaster, available exclusively to Crooked subscribers. To get access or learn more about the Friends of the Pod community, head to crooked.com/friends. We will be back after some ads.
What a Day is brought to you by bookshop.org. When you shop for books with bookshop.org, your purchase directly supports an independent bookstore of your choice, and you can choose to support bookstores from all around the country. Maybe you're looking for an NAACP Image Award-winning book. You can check out Historically Black Phrases from I Ain't One of Your Little Friends to Who All Gonna Be There. Maybe you're looking for, a book that has been out about a year, okay, that is really fabulous about Black trans visibility. It's called We See Each Other, a Black trans journey through TV and film. And you can also get other people books too.
It's true. And you can also send a note to Tre'vell, ask him to please stop writing so many books while the rest of us haven't even written one. No, truly, bookshop.org is also great because it supports bookstores like My Little Sisters, which is called Four Keeps Books here in Atlanta. Amazing bookstore. And so, honestly, the best way to support the two of us is either to Venmo us directly or shop at bookshop.org while listening to What a Day. In addition to selling books online, bookshop.org makes it easy to support a bookstore that aligns with your values, such as a woman-owned bookstore or an LGBTQI+ owned bookstore or a Black-owned bookstore. They have every book you could want, truly, and you can feel good about buying books online and get 10% off your order at bookshop.org/WAD. What a Day is brought to you by Quince. The weather is getting warmer, so it's time to say goodbye to jackets and sweaters and hello to shorts and tees. If you have been wanting to update your wardrobe for the long haul without spending a fortune, let me tell you something. Quince is for you. Just last week, I got a new light sweater, I got 2 new skirts, and I got a new set of sheets for a fraction of what it would have cost me basically anywhere else. Quince is pretty amazing. Feels like magic. Genuinely.
Listen, you can be just like Josie and feel like magic too. Build up a lineup of timeless pieces that keep you looking effortlessly chic year after year.
Yeah, get warm weather ready with Quince. So go to quince.com/WAD for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Yes, 365 days you have to return something. So that's QUINCE.com/WAD to get free shipping and 365-day returns. QUINCE.com/WAD.
What a Day is brought to you by Ulta Beauty. This AAPI Heritage Month, Ulta Beauty is celebrating the joy of belonging to a community composed of intricate connections, belonging to our past and our future, to the heritage and birthright that is beauty.
Ulta Beauty shines a light on the AAPI community, passing the mic to brand founders and creators to tell their stories centered on heritage, joy, and beauty. They carry AAPI-owned and founded brands like Live Tinted, Peach and Lily, Glamnetic, Tree Hut, and more. Shop AAPI-owned and founded brands at Ulta Beauty stores and Ulta.com.
Let's get to some headlines.
Headlines.
Donald Trump's former fixer and personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, took the stand for 6 hours on Monday in Manhattan in the criminal hush money trial of the former president. Responding to questions from the prosecution, Cohen claimed that Trump signed off on the plan to buy silence from adult film star Stormy Daniels for $130,000. Cohen needed to secure that money himself, and in court he said Trump promised to pay him back. This detail is crucial to the government's claim that Trump falsified business records when he later classified reimbursements to Cohen as normal legal expenses. Prosecutors from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office will finish questioning Cohen today, and then Cohen will undergo cross-examination by Trump's defense lawyers. Cohen is by far the prosecution's most important witness. Trump's legal team has already made clear their intent to attack his credibility by highlighting his 2018 felony conviction and suggesting that he is motivated by a desire for revenge.
Maryland, West Virginia, and Nebraska are holding primaries today. In the West Virginia governor's race, local Republicans are competing with each other to see who can be the most transphobic candidate. In Maryland, the traditional sleepy Democratic Senate primary is shaping up to be more competitive and contentious than usual, as rich guy Representative David Trone, the owner of Total Wine and More, faces off against Prince George's County executive and former prosecutor Angela Elsa Brooks. Former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan is also running in the Republican primary for the Senate seat.
Louisiana could become the first state in the country to categorize abortion pills as controlled dangerous substances, meaning fines and jail time for any non-healthcare professional caught in the possession of the drugs without a prescription. A pregnant woman who obtained the pills for herself would be exempt from prosecution, but a friend helping her get the pills could be charged with the crime and face up to 5 years in prison. The amendment proposed by Louisiana Republicans would add abortion pills to a list of criminalized addictive drugs like opioids and depressants, even though more than 200 Louisiana doctors signed a letter pointing out that this makes no scientific sense. It's because, in case you were wondering, mifepristone, which is the most common abortion pill, is actually safer than Viagra and penicillin.
Thousands of Mercedes-Benz auto workers in Alabama began voting Monday on whether to join the United Auto Workers Union, or UAW. In April, 73% of Volkswagen workers in Tennessee voted to join the UAW, granting the union a huge win in its drive to organize in the South. The Tuscaloosa area vote could prove to be more challenging, however. Last week, the UAW accused Mercedes-Benz of union busting much more aggressively than Volkswagen. The National Labor Relations Board will announce the vote tally on Friday.
And we are about to find out what really happened behind the scenes of the daytime talk show hosted by Ellen DeGeneres in a new Netflix special from comedian Ellen DeGeneres. DeGeneres announced the show on Monday, writing, quote, "Yes, I'm going to talk about it," in a press release. The it she's referring to is probably her messy exit from the Ellen DeGeneres show in 2022, following allegations of a toxic workplace and harassment by executive producers. She also said this would be her last special, capping off a long and trailblazing career that saw her star as the first gay or lesbian lead character on a U.S. network television show. TBD whether Ellen's new act allows her to dance her way back into you all's hearts. While touring this year, the comedian has said that after the allegations hit, she was the, quote, most hated person in America.
That's crazy. In America? I wish our biggest controversy was Ellen DeGeneres. That sounds lovely.
I'm sure it felt like she was the most hated person in America.
But that's why you go to therapy, to get perspective.
There is that. And those are the headlines.
One more thing before we go. Do you want to know the latest internet stories but can't seem to get past the Kendrick versus Drake debacle? Us too. So break out of your echo chamber with Jon Favreau on the latest episode of Crooked's subscriber-exclusive show, Terminally Online, where Jon asks staffers around the office about their most recent internet rabbit holes. If you are not yet a Friends of the Pod subscriber, scroll on over to crooked.com/friends to sign up. That is all for today. If you like the show, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, get your tickets for Ellen's non-apology tour, and tell your friends to listen.
And if you are into reading and not just Trump's falsified business records like me, What A Day is also a nightly newsletter. Check it out and subscribe at crooked.com/subscribe. I'm Tre'vell Anderson.
I'm Josie Duffy Rice.
And you can't make us eat cicadas. I eat a lot of wild things, such as chitlins, Josie. But I don't know if I can bring myself to do the cicada.
I'll eat cicadas when there are no other options left. But we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
I'm not going to eat something out loud. It's too stressful. What It Is a production of Crooked Media. It's recorded and mixed by Bill Lance. Our associate producers are Raven Yamamoto and Natalie Bettendorf. We had production help today from John Milstein, Greg Walters, and Julia Clare. Our showrunner is Erica Morrison, and our executive producer is Adrian Hill. Our theme music is by Colin Gilliard and Kashaka.
Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. With the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers. In fact, Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/podcastfree. All lowercase, shopify.com/podcastfree, shopify.com/podcastfree.
Why are smart businesses graduating to NetSuite by Oracle? Because NetSuite eliminates the expense of multiple business systems by consolidating your operations together into one. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one platform and one source of truth. NetSuite reduces IT costs because it lives in the cloud with no hardware required, so you can access it from anywhere. You cut the cost and headaches of maintaining multiple systems because you've got one unified business management suite. Bringing all your major business processes into one platform improves efficiency, slashing manual tasks and errors. Over 37,000 companies have already made the move, so do the math. You'll see how you'll profit with NetSuite too. And now, by popular demand, NetSuite has extended its one-of-a-kind flexible financing program for a few more weeks. Just go to netsuite.com/podcast25 for more information. That's netsuite.com/podcast25.